Hope you had a nice night last night. We are still expecting people, but I propose to start and then people can join, so not to take anybody's time. So Ivan, please.
Oh, okay. Okay, good morning everyone. Thank you for joining, also those online. I'm Ivan Ortala. I work at Civil Rights Defenders at the Brussels we have at the office we have in Brussels, sorry. And then our panel discussion today will be about Roma in Turkey. There's an excellent report that Civil Rights Defenders prepared about it, which the title already depicts quite a gloomy picture. It's called Roma in Turkey: Discrimination, Exclusion, Deep Poverty and Deprivation. So some of the topics we'll touch upon today will be the discrimination, how it is embedded in the Turkish society, in the Turkish institutions, then the access to housing, from gentrification to demolition of buildings where Roma people live, to lynching cases, access to education. We'll deal, for example, with access to schools, how the pandemic affected that, the cases of early marriages, and how also the energy crisis that we have right now, plus the war in Ukraine are affecting the access to education, access to employment. Again, we see the consequences of COVID, of discrimination of Roma people in Turkey. Same happens with access to health. So basically, every policy area we see like entrenched, embedded discrimination against Roma people. But we also have a more positive side, and that's why I'm very happy to have representatives from this new initiative called Romani Godi, which is a new initiative created this year actually. It's mostly with young, educated Roma from Turkey, and it's part of this general human rights movement in the country. So we'll deal also with Roma mobilization from civil society, but we also have some political parties that represent Roma interests. And then I would like first to introduce our two main speakers, and I'm very pleased to be here today moderating this panel. So Serkan will speak first, and then Ayça will add a more gender perspective to the issues of Roma in Turkey. So my first question to Serkan first is like, what is Romani Godi, and if you could please describe yourself and what are your projects, what are your new initiatives?
Thank you, Ivan. Good morning, all. It's really a great honor for me to be being here and to talk about Roma in Turkey. As Ivan mentioned, that we are newly established one initiative. Like we have around 1 year, 13 months that we started our journey, and mainly we start to work about Roma memory, at least to take first step of creating Roma memory in Turkey, and to work rights-based for Roma. That we think that in Turkey Roma movement is mostly expressed in poverty for social services, and that's why we want to bring one new movement in Turkey that's for a long time it's not worked for human rights based, and no one is talking about Roma rights in Turkey. So this is the main goals, targets that we started our journey.
Thank you very much. And related to that, I would like to ask you about the history of Roma rights movement in Turkey, and what do you think it was the main turning point?
In Turkey, Roma movement doesn't have so long history, like 25 years completed. But when I'm talking for 25 years, it doesn't mean that's active 25 years, because late 90s, first Roma NGO was established in Turkey, in Izmir, and after just a few days it was closed because it was not allowed to use Roma term in the name to not. That's why it was closed immediately, and founders they were investigated about ethnic discrimination in Turkey. So after this case, Roma movement, let's say that it was first attempt, but it didn't start actively. And until 2004, Roma NGOs, they were not organized under Roma name. And they were organized under professions name, like drummers, like basket makers. So they had some profession NGOs, but it was not called Roma NGOs to talk about Roma rights or to work actively for Roma rights in Turkey. In 2004, first Roma NGO was established with Roma name in Edirne. That's also they did really effective and good works that, let's say that still we have their paths on the field that we use. They work in that period after establishment, they work with assembly and with ERRC about preparing my report in Turkey, about general overview of Roma in Turkey. So this was the let's say that first Roma NGO that they use Roma name in the Roma word in their name. Until 2004, around 50 NGOs, 2009, around 50 Roma NGOs, they were established and they were doing works in Turkey. But one important turning points for Roma in Turkey is 2009 is Roma gathering, or with another calling is Roma opening. This Roma gathering was organized by the government in that period. Prime Minister was Erdogan, and in one basketball hall, that's a lot of Roma people around the Turkey, that also Sinan was there actively working. I mean, when it was need to talk about Roma. So it was one turning point for Roma in Turkey, because until that time Roma movement was, let's say that, almost invisible. And just some, as I told, that some researches were done and they were working. But with Roma gathering, media, government and all political parties were aware that Roma exists in Turkey. And they see that there is huge population, and at the same time they see that huge vote potential for them. Erdogan, he promised that we will work for Roma, especially, maybe Sinan also will mention about it, that we will give houses to Roma, all Roma, but their estimation was like 400,000, 500,000 Roma live in Turkey, but they didn't know official numbers that it's around 5 million. Their calculation and reality, it was really different. That's why, what they promised, they told that we will do all works and these plans with Roma NGOs. Then Roma NGOs, they were encouraged to, Roma people, individuals, they were encouraged to establish more Roma NGO in Turkey. Then immediately number was increased 2 times, 3 times more. And that time, that we had 50 Roma NGOs, it increased more, over the 100. So this was one encouragement for Roma individuals to take part in Roma movement, but at the same time, also it brings visibility for Roma and draw attention by the political parties that these political parties show interest Roma. That also, this was the start point for electing first Roma MP in Roma history. So until 2015, Roma NGOs, they were working with, under Roma Gathering with these dreams, and in 2012, political parties, they pay more attention, and they start to contact with Roma individuals and Roma NGOs, and there were good sides and negative sides and positive sides of these contacts, this connection. But here it was like political polarization. It's caused for political polarization that government supporters, opposition supporters. This was, let's say, that one of the biggest polarization division among Roma NGOs in that period. But before this polarization and division, what was good side of this Roma movement? Roma leaders, they were more united and more collaborative with each other. That they established some platforms for forums that, especially Romfo, it was called. That it bring a lot of success and some turning points to also Roma movement in Turkey. That it was one of them. Result is helping electing a first Roma MP in Turkey in 2015. And also they were actively working for Roma strategic paper in Turkey. It started action plans. They were published in 2016. That's for 5 years. And this strategy paper and first Roma election of first Roma MP in Turkey, it was with their effort, with their collaboration. But as I told, after this period, this political division and polarization, it brings really negative consequences to Roma movement. So, 2016 Roma strategic paper and Roma action plans, first phase in 2016, second phase in 2018 were published, and this was one of good. I know that what is written in paper that Roma NGOs, they work for many long periods, long time. That's what they prepare. It was not published. It was not accepted by the state, by the government. But still, let's say that it was one success to be recognized as, let's say, minority in Turkey. That it was a strategy paper and action plan for Turkey. This was one of the biggest success from our side. So in this period, Roma youngsters, they were trying to include it into Roma movement. Let's say that from 2015 they were more active, more eager to take part. But until end of 2018-19, unfortunately we couldn't take actively part. But after this period, more Roma youngsters, they were organized and they established their own NGOs, and they were the first attempts to include their to be included by own initiatives. That's let's say that today, if we are establish our own initiative, it was consequences of these attempts and these efforts. So also I want to mention some challenges in Roma movement in Turkey. That still we have a serious problem of capacity of NGOs. That's yesterday with Andor, with Sinan, it was talk here that accessing EU funds is one of main problem for Roma, maybe in EU, in Western Balkans and in Europe. But for Turkey, it's not just for EU funds, but also local funds is really difficult to access for us because really we have serious capacity problem. That's youngsters, they are more capacitated, but still we need to strengthen our capacity. That's for 2023 for us will be a capacity building year as organization. Another point that's all aspects of community, they are not included in Roma movement. That's youngs, women, LGBTI plus individuals, disabled people, they are not actively taking part in Roma movement. That's what we want to cope with, that we want to include all young who are eager and capacitated young people, young Roma, women, LGBTI plus and disabled Roma in movement to talk with their own voices. That, as I told, political polarization still exists and one of the big issue in Turkey. And also focusing on poverty is another problem that's in Roma movement, as I told earlier, is Roma NGOs, they are not working rights-based and they do not raise voice for not just for Roma rights, but any kind of human rights violation, that this is leaving us alone in the field. Because if we don't raise voice for any human rights violation, so also we cannot expect from human rights organizations to be included and to raise voice for Roma. So what we want to do with our team, that's already we are part of human rights defenders supporting network in Turkey that's more than 20 the most powerful, the most active human rights associations that which are not working directly with Roma. They work with Roma but not directly. They are not their main field. That's we are collaborating with them, and for any of human rights violations we are acting together, and result of this collaboration also they start to more engage and more included in Roma movement in Turkey. Also we have huge support from them, that this is really important for us, that one of them civil rights defenders Turkey office. So, as I told, lack of communication with human rights organization is another important issue, and as our group, we would like to build these more effective collaborations and works together with human rights associations.
Thank you. So, how do you see the future for your organization and in general for Roma rights movement in Turkey? Do you see any new and promising developments, or are you rather more pessimistic about it? Because you mentioned a few challenges, but you also mentioned that Roma people are more visible now in society, that you have elected your first Roma MEP in 2015. So I would like to know your assessment about the future.
Yeah, really optimistic. What I want to say firstly, we are really optimistic as a group. We are like 10 people in coordination team and 20 youngs with in our team. That's we have our strategy plan, what we will do in 5 years. Already we know where we are going. We know what are the challenges for us and how we will cope with them, with whom we will cope with them. And so we are really optimistic that we have a lot of lessons learned from past experiences that I'm included in Roma movement around 10 years with my voluntary period, and all my colleagues, even they are youngs, we have 5 years, 6 years experience, many of our members, and we are aware of all challenges, all challenges, and what Roma movement passed in Turkey. What was the mistakes and how we can eliminate these mistakes in our works, and how we can include all aspects of Roma people in Turkey for this moment. For example, when we are talking about Roma, we need to talk about Roma women, that they are intersectional discriminated. We need to talk about Roma young's problems, but when we are talking about Roma women, we are talking, we are giving this floor as team to all women to talk about their issues. That's member of our NGO, more than 50% is women. And we are led by a woman that's, it's not just being woman, but we know their capacity, we know their abilities, and we are working together. If we are talking for Roma LGBTI plus issues in Turkey, what they are facing, we need to collaborate with Roma LGBT, and we collaborate with Roma LGBTs directly in Turkey with LGBT NGOs. They to support us, we to inform them about Roma, and they to inform us about LGBT movement. So what I want to say here, that we do not want to take initiatives and responsibilities as adults men ideology, but to include all aspects of Roma people in the movement, and to give floor everyone to talk these problems. That's why we are really optimistic. And another good point for us collaborating with human rights associations directly for any topics, and we feel their support, that in 1 year we organize many events about different topics for Roma. And another good point, anecdote to share with you, that why I am optimistic. That's, for example, ministry was planning launch Roma action plan in this year, in July they were, and they stated in their website that we will share soon. That when we talk with ministry staff, they told that in July we will launch it. And we told that you didn't ask any Roma NGO, any civic representative, how you can launch it without our feedback, without our opinion. Then we start one campaign. We bring together 50 of Roma NGOs, and we raised voice, we prepare petition, we send to ministry, we start social media campaigns, and they had to stop to launch action plan. Later they sent us mails, please share your feedback, or your, not feedback, but your suggestions. Even their way was not correct to ask opinion, feedback and suggestions. Still, it was success for us that they consider us, we are here. You cannot share you cannot do something for us without us. So that's why being organized with all human rights associations, we are aware of what are challenges and lesson learned. They bring us more optimism for our future works.
Well, it's good to hear like some also optimism, and that I hope that this is the way forward, and that we have more promising new developments, also thanks to the work of grassroots organizations like yours. And you also mentioned the problem of intersectional discrimination, which is indeed very important, especially in the patriarchal societies where we live. So now I would like to give the floor to Aicha, and my first question will be about the demographics of Roma in Turkey. So according to the latest statistics, there's around 83.6 million people in Turkey, but it is not clear how many Roma people are living because Turkey doesn't classify people according to the minorities. So I would like to know what can you tell us about the demographics of Roma in Turkey?
Teşekkürler İvan. Öncelikle herkese merhaba. Ben Ayça Tutal, Türkiye'li Roman bir kadınım ve Romani Goca ekibindenim.
Sorry. I'm sorry. My apologies. There is not going to be translation, so you don't need headsets. Sinan will translate directly to the mic. I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you.
Ben Ayça Tutal, Türkiye'li Roman bir kadınım ve Romani Goca ekibindenim. Türkiye'de sayısı çok az olan üniversite mezunu Roman kadınlardan biriyim.
Hello, this is Ayça Tutal. I'm a Romani woman from Turkey, and I'm from the Romani Goca team, and I'm one of the few university graduate Romani women in Turkey.
Öncelikle bana buraya çıkma fırsatı verdiğiniz için Civil Rights Defenders'a çok teşekkür ediyorum.
First of all, I would like to thank to Civil Rights Defenders for the opportunity to be here.
Bugün size Türkiye'deki Roman toplumunda kadının yeri konusunda bir şeyler söyledikten sonra Roman Sivil Toplum Hareketi'nde kadının yeri ve rolünden bahsedeceğim.
Today I will first talk about briefly on the position of Romani women within the society and within the Roma community, and then I will talk about, I will share my thoughts about the role of women within the Roma rights movement in Turkey.
Kadın konusuna gelmeden önce Türkiye'deki Roman topluluğuna ilişkin birkaç genel demografik bilgi aktarmak istiyorum.
But before moving to gender issues, first of all I would like to share some information with you on the demography of Roma in Turkey.
Resmi bir kurum olan Türkiye İstatistik Kurumu, Türkiye'nin nüfusunu 83 milyon olarak veriyor ve nüfusu cinsiyet, yaş ve yoğunluk kategorisine göre sınıflandırıyor.
Turkey Statistical Institution, which is the official body which keeps the record of everything in Turkey, gives the population of Turkey currently around 33 million plus, etc., so minimum 33 million, and they categorize the population based on gender, age, density, and so on and so forth.
Ancak nüfus istatistikleri verileri etnisite, din ya da ana dile göre ayrıştırılmadığından Romanlar da dahil olmak üzere hiçbir azınlık gruba ilişkin istatistik bir sayı yok, veri yok.
However, there are no data gathered based on ethnicity, religion, and mother tongue, and so on and so forth. So we don't have any information, any official information, any data on groups, including Roma, so we don't know the figures.
Azınlık grupların nüfusu üzerine bir bilimsel ya da akademik çalışma yapılmadığı için Türkiye'de Roman nüfusuna ilişkin tahminlerde bulunurken çok daha dikkatli olmak gerekiyor.
Furthermore, there are very few research on the Roma minority groups, Roma and other minority groups and their population. So we should be very careful when we talk about the population of Roma in Turkey.
Avrupa Konseyi İnsan Hakları Komiseri Thomas Hammarberg tarafından hazırlanan 2009 tarihli raporda Türkiye'deki Roman nüfusu 2.750.000 olarak tahmin edilmiş.
I'm sure you are all familiar with the Thomas Hammarberg's report 2009 on Roma. In this report, then he was the Commissioner for Human Rights for the European Council of Europe, and in this report he gave the number as 2.7 million.
Ancak Hammarberg'in raporunun yayınlanmasından 13 yıl sonra hala elimizde bugün Türkiye'de kaç Roman yaşadığına dair istatistik bir veri bulunmuyor maalesef.
And still, after 13 years of this publication, we still don't have any healthy figures on the numbers of Roma in Turkey. Bir şey ekleyeceğim ben. In addition, Turkey officially accepts the number of Roma in Turkey as around 500,000. 400-500 bin resmi olarak bu rakamı kabul ediyorlar. Yes.
Ancak bazı sivil toplum kuruluşları ve uzmanlar bu rakamın yaklaşık 5 milyon olduğunu söylüyor.
However, some NGOs and some experts estimate the number of Roma in Turkey around 5 million.
Türkiye'de Hindistan kökenli, buraya geçeyim mi?
Evet.
Tamam. Türkiye'de Hindistan kökenli 3 ana dilsel grup var. Romanlar, Domlar ve Lomlar.
In Turkey, there are three major groups, Roma, Dom and Lom.
Romanlar ağırlıklı olarak Türkiye'nin batısında ve Trakya bölgesinde yaşarken, Domlar ülkenin güneydoğu bölgesinde, Lomlar ise kuzeydoğuda yaşıyor.
As you know, Roma mostly live in the western part of Turkey and in the Thrace region, while Dom groups live in southeastern Turkey, in the Kurdish populated areas of Turkey, and Lom lives close to Georgian border, northeast part of the country.
Ve hepsinin kendine ait dilleri var.
And they all speak their own languages.
Kadın konusuna geçmeden önce devam edelim. Kadın konusuna geçmeden önce çok kısaca şu noktaya da değinmek lazım. Resmi ve hukuki olarak Türkiye'de azınlık yoktur.
Again, before moving to gender-related issues, on demography, we can say that according to law and officially, there are no minorities in Turkey.
Anayasaya göre Türk devletine vatandaşlık bağı ile bağlı olan herkes Türktür.
The Constitution states that, this is an article from Article 3 of the Constitution, everybody who's attached to republic with Constitution is Turkish. So everybody in Turkey, by Constitution, is Turkish.
Bu tanım elbette büyük sıkıntılar yaratmaktadır.
Of course, this definition creates lots of problems.
Türkiye'de azınlıklarla ilgili tek düzenleme 1924 tarihli Lozan Anlaşması'nda yer alır.
The only regulation on minorities is the Lausanne Treaty of 1924.
Türkiye Cumhuriyeti'nin kurucu anlaşması olan bu sözleşme, Müslüman olmayan gruplara bazı haklar tanır. Cumhuriyet...
This is the founding treaty between Western powers and Turkey, and this treaty gives certain rights to non-Muslim groups.
Cumhuriyet yönetimi bu grupları Rumlar, Ermeniler ve Yahudiler olarak tanımlamıştır.
And the new republic recognize these groups as Greeks, Armenians and Jews.
Yani aslında Türkiye'de Romanlar hukuki olarak yoktur.
In other words, Roma do not exist in Turkey officially and legally.
So now I would like to ask you, before we move to the situation of Roma women in Turkey, what is the situation of women in Turkey in general?
Türkiye'de kadının, Roman kadınlar konusunda önce kadınların durumu ile ilişkin genel bilgi verebilir misin?
Türkiye'de Roman kadın olmak. Türkiye'de kadın olmak zaten kendi başına büyük sorun. Kadına yönelik şiddet konusunda dünya sıralamasında en başta gelen ülkelerden biriyiz maalesef.
Şöyle, we can start like that. To be a woman in Turkey is a very difficult thing on its own. And Turkey is one of the leading countries when it comes to violence targeting women.
Kadın cinayetlerini durduracağız platformuna göre sadece 2022 Ağustos ayında 33 kadın öldürüldü. 15 kadın şüpheli şekilde hayatını kaybetti.
According to this women rights organization called We Will Stop Femicide Platform, only in August 2023, not the whole year, just in the August this year, 33 women were killed by men, and at least 15 women were killed under suspicious circumstances. Just to add, annual average is around 400-500 women being killed by men in Turkey.
Durum böyleyken Erdoğan 20 Mart 2021 yılında Cumhurbaşkanlığı kararnamesiyle Türkiye'yi İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nden çıkarttı.
Even under these circumstances where women's rights are being severe attacked, on 20 March 2021, our beloved President Erdogan took Turkey out of the Istanbul Convention.
Türkiye'nin ilk imzacı olduğu, hazırlanması için Ankara hükümetinin büyük çaba sarf ettiği, kadın örgütlerinin büyük emek harcadığı İstanbul Sözleşmesi'nden ya da tam adıyla kadınlara yönelik şiddet ve aile içi şiddetin önlenmesi ve bunlarla mücadele ilişkin Avrupa Konseyi Sözleşmesi'nden çıkmak, Erdoğan rejiminin kadına bakış açısını tam olarak yansıtmaktadır aslında.
It's very ironic because Turkey was the leading country to promote the Istanbul Convention. That's why it's called Istanbul Convention, because it was signed in Turkey. Erdogan himself was one of the very active promoter of the convention, and Turkey was the first country to sign the convention. And for those who are not familiar, the full name is European Council of Europe Convention on Prevention of Violence Targeting Women and Domestic Violence, and measures to struggle with this. So taking Turkey out of this convention, so Erdogan was the first signatory of the convention, and again with Erdogan's signature, Turkey left the convention, and this act actually reflects Erdogan regime's perception on women and women rights.
AKP yönetimi altında kadın hakları sürekli artan bir baskı altındadır.
Under the governing Erdogan party, women's rights are under constant threat.
Bu yönetim kadını sadece çocuk yapan ve evinde kocasına hizmet eden bir konumda görmek istemektedir.
This government wants to see women in a domestic position only, who produce babies and serving the men. They openly say this, like, they don't even hide this.
Türkiye'de kadınların genel durumu böyleyken Roman kadınların durumunun mucizevi bir şekilde daha iyi olması elbette beklenemez.
Burada dur şimdi sana şey yapacak. So we can shift to Roma women from this point. So while the general situation is like that regarding women and women rights, of course we cannot expect miraculously the situation of Romani women is better than the general average. Do you want to her continue, or do you have any questions? Because she's going to shift to Romani women. Okay.
Tam tersine Roman mahallelerinin eğitim seviyesi ve yoksulluk kadının toplum içindeki konumunu daha da sıkıntılı hale getirmektedir.
Actually, on the contrary, the poverty and level of education in Romani settlements intensifies the difficulties that women in Romani women's problems.
Roman mahallesinde büyümüş bir kadın olarak Roman kadınların yaşadıkları sorunları şöyle özetleyebilirim.
As a woman who grew up in a Romani settlement, I can make a list of the issues that Romani women face in their societies.
Aile içi şiddet Roman mahallelerinde ve özellikle işte ev içerisinde çok fazla yaygın. Bunun birçok nedeni var.
Number one probably is the domestic violence, which is very common in Romani settlements.
Ekonomik sıkıntılar, kadının istihdama erişememe durumu, erkeğin kadın üzerindeki oluşturmuş olduğu baskı.
We can make a long list of reasons behind the domestic violence, but we can also mention the economic situation, the women's not being excluded from the workforce, so man is the breadwinner, and then this gives the men to pressure on women.
Belki de en önemli nedenlerinden birisi de son zamanlarda artan madde kullanımı ile birlikte aile içi şiddet de giderek arttı.
Also, unfortunately, the drastically increasing number of drug addiction in Romani settlements among the young is another reason of increasing domestic violence in Romani settlements.
Kadınların yaşadığı diğer sorunlardan bir tanesi de çoklu ayrımcılık.
Of course, another issue that we have to mention is multiple discrimination that Romani women face.
Hem etnik hem de toplumsal cinsiyete bağlı olarak iki aşamada da kadınlar bir ayrımcılığa maruz kalıyorlar.
So based on their ethnicity and based on their gender, Romani women are being discriminated.
Çocuk yaşta evlilikler Roman mahallelerinde çok fazla yaygın.
It is the early marriages are very common in Romani settlements.
Erken yaşta okul terki,
And also dropout from school at a very early stage is very common.
Çocukların erken yaşta okulu terk etmesinin ve özellikle kız çocukların okulu terk etmesinin en büyük nedenlerinden bir tanesi de karşı karşıya kalmış oldukları ön yargı ve ayrımcılık.
I mean, one of the main reasons behind early dropouts for Romani kids, Romani girls, is the prejudices that they face within the community.
Çocuk yaşta kadına yüklenen toplumsal sorumluluklar,
And there are lots of social pressure and burdens put on the shoulders of Romani girls.
bir örnek vermek istiyorum.
For example,
Mesela işte benim benden küçük kardeşlerim varsa ve annem babam çalışıyorsa ben kardeşime bakmakla yükümlüyüm. Evi bir şekilde temizliği işte vesaire gibi aslında aile bireylerinin yapması gereken şeyleri yoksulluğun da getirmiş olduğu sorunlarla birlikte ben yapmak zorunda kalıyorum.
in most cases, the oldest girl of the home is expected to take care of the younger siblings, and main reason for this is, of course, economic situation. Mother has to work, father has to work. So, at the age of 10, 11, 13, whatever, you are in a position taking care of your youngers. Like.
Çocuk yaşta doğum yapan Roman kadınların sağlıksal birçok sorun yaşaması,
Another issue is, as a result of early marriages, Romani girls give birth in a very early age when they are still child themselves. And of course this creates lots of health issues.
hem fiziksel hem psikolojik ve psikolojik şiddetin her türlüsüne maruz kalıyorlar.
And also these problems are not only physical, that the health issues, also psychological, because they're under pressure.
Derin yoksulluk,
Deep poverty is one of the major problems that Romani women have to deal with.
Roman kadınların çalışan kesimi çalışsa da güvencesiz işlerde yani sigortasız işlerde çalışıyor. Bu da onların hayatını çok da güvence altına almıyor aslında.
As a result of the poverty, Romani women in most cases work in, how do you say, not registered jobs, like so they don't have any social security, social insurance, and so on and so forth. Daily work in most cases. So it also, this situation also is reflected in their daily life. This insecurity feeling.
Kültürel baskılar, bununla alakalı da işte bir örnek vermek istiyorum.
Another problem that Romani women face in Turkey is the cultural pressure.
Roman toplumunda kadınların üzerinde oluşturulan baskılardan bir tanesi de bekaret algısıdır. Kadın evlenmeden önce bunu korumakla mükelleftir.
For example, virginity is a big pressure on Romani girls. They're expected to protect their virginity before marriage.
Bu da kadına bazı aslında psikolojik ve psikolojik olarak bazı üzerinde baskı oluşturuyor.
And this expectation creates some kind of a psychological pressure on young girls.
Mesela ilk konuştuğu biriyle mahallede adı çıktığı için evlenmek zorunda kalıyor.
For example, if the young girl is seen with a young boy in the neighborhood, because of this pressure, she has to marry that boy, like because then she can be labeled.
Barınma koşulları ile alakalı da şöyle bir şey söylemek istiyorum. Roman toplumunda Romanlar daha çok gecekondu tarzı yapılarda yaşamlarını devam ettirmektedir.
Housing situation is also another issue. In most cases in Roma settlements, they live in shacks, what we call gecekondu type of housing.
Evler fiziksel olarak sağlıksız bir yapıya sahiptir.
In most cases, these housing do not have decent, proper hygienic and otherwise conditions.
Ve evde en fazla vakit geçiren, yani zaman geçiren kesim kadınlar ve çocuklardır. O yüzden bundan en çok etkilenen de aslında kadınlar.
So this unhealthy housing environment affect the women most because they spend the most time at home. Men are working outside, etc.
Rol model eksikliği en büyük sorunlardan bir tanesi.
Another problem that we can talk about is the absence of good role models for Romani women.
Kız çocukları karşılarında güçlü, okumuş, ayakları üzerine basan kadınlar görmedikleri için mahalle içerisinde belki de erken yaşta okul terkinin nedenlerinden bir tanesi olarak gösterebiliriz bunu.
So in many cases, in many Roma settlements, young girls do not see a powerful, successful Romani woman who achieve something, so that this also leads early dropouts and early marriages.
Akran zorbalığı, kız çocukları gacoların okullarına gittiklerinde orada karşılaştıkları ön yargılar ve gene işte ayrımcılıklar, ötekileştirmeler.
And harassment by the peers, especially in schools, faced by Romani girls when they go to mixed schools, non-Roma Gajo children harass them.
Aslında bu anlattığım sorunların hepsi birbiriyle bağlantılı.
Of course, all these issues are interlinked.
Biri diğerinin nedeni.
One of them is the reason of the other one or consequence of the other one.
Bu sorunların bazıları da sadece romanlara özgü değil elbet.
Of course, also some of these issues are not only Roma related. I mean, they are not unique to Roma communities.
O nedenle bir yandan kadına yönelik hak temelli ve feminist genel politikalar üretirken öte yandan Roman kadınlara özgü sorunları ilişkinde özel programlar geliştirmek gerekiyor.
That's why we have to, on the one hand, develop programs, comprehensive programs, rights-based and feminist policies targeting the whole women in the society, but at the same time we should develop special programs targeting the special problems of the Romani women. So it should be combined, like you cannot just develop strategies for Romani women. There must be a comprehensive national women policy based on feminist approaches and human rights, but at the same time you shouldn't ignore or forget some special issues that Romani women face.
O nedenle genel insan hakları örgütleri ve kadın hareketinin roman konusuna ilgi duymasını sağlamakta gerekiyor aslında.
And for that reason it's very necessary and must to make general women rights organizations and human rights organizations to pay attention to situation of the Romani women.
Şuna da değinmek istiyorum.
I also want to mention one more thing.
Özellikle son dönemlerde iyice yükselen başka bir sorun da Roman mahallelerinde giderek artan uyuşturucu kullanımı.
As I said earlier, I want to elaborate a bit more. Especially in recent times, the drug problem is becoming a major issue in many Romani settlements, unfortunately, in Turkey.
Kullanıcıların yaşı neredeyse ilkokul düzeyine kadar indi.
And unfortunately, again, the age of users almost went down to primary school. So we are talking about 8-10 years old boys, girls using drugs.
Aslında bu da ileriki aşamada kadına yönelik şiddeti artan unsurlardan bir tanesi.
And this is one of the factors increasing the violence against women in the settlements.
Mahallede kadının durumu böyle olunca bu kaçınılmaz olarak Roman hareketine de yansıyor.
So this is the general picture of the Romani women, the position of Romani women within the society, within the Romani communities. So of course, inevitably, this situation is reflected is reflected to the position of Romani women within the Roma rights movement.
Thank you. So you mentioned indeed a lot of challenges from dropout from schools to the poverty to social pressure, etc. But do you see any promising developments that can happen, for example, by collaborating with other national or international feminist NGOs? How do you see this? Do you see an improvement, for example, during these last years, or do you think that the situation, for example, after Turkey withdrew from the Istanbul Convention, it's becoming worse and worse for women, and especially for women from the Roma community?
Geleceğe ilişkin nedir yani işte diğer işbirlikleri vesaire. Sen bildiğin gibi devam edeceksin şeyden.
Türkiye'deki yüzlerce roman derneğinde yönetimden kadınların etkili olduğu yapı sayısı 3 ve 5. 3 veya 5.
Unfortunately, there are hundreds of Roma NGOs now in Turkey, but however, we can count like 3 or 5 NGOs, Roma NGOs, where women are in a effective position, powerful position in total. Yeah.
Diğer geleneksel roman derneklerinde kadın hem birey olarak hem de çalışma alanı olarak yok.
In most of the traditional Roma NGOs, Roma civil society organizations, women do not exist neither as a person or individual, nor as a topic of work.
Kısacası roman mahallelerinde ataerkil bir toplum yapısı hakim. Patriarkal yapı kadını her alanda ikinci plana itiyor.
In short, in Roma movement and Roma settlements, a patriarchal structure is the dominant factor, and this structure pushing women into the secondary position in all walks of the life.
Şiddete zemin hazırlıyor ve kadını değersizleştiriyor aslında.
And this situation also creating the grounds, laying the floor for violence against women, also making women less valuable in quotation mark.
2010 yılında Erdoğan'ın başlattığı roman açılımı ile birlikte romanların dernekleşme süreçleri hızlandı, dernek sayısı da giderek arttı.
As Serkan mentioned, with the Roma opening by Erdogan, many NGOs, many Roma civil society organizations were established, and then there was a boom of number of Roma NGOs in the country.
Bu açılım romanları siyasetin de ilgi alanına soktu ve şu an 2 tane roman milletvekili var, ikisi de erkek.
And as Serkan mentioned, as a result of this process, now there are 2 MPs in the parliament of Roma origin. However, they both are men.
Toparlarsak, roman hareketi içinde kadının rolü aslında roman toplumu içinde kadının konumuyla da çok fazla ilintili.
So to sum up, the position of Romani women within the Roma rights movement is very much linked, and it reflects the position of Romani women within the Roma community and within the society.
Bunu kırmak, kız çocukları için okullaşmayı, yani eğitim kalitesini ve süresini arttırmak, kadınların ekonomik olarak bağımsızlığını kazandırmak ile mümkün olabilir.
To get rid of this situation, to change this situation, perhaps we can start with increasing the number of girls attending school, but not only the numbers of the years, but also the quality of education that they get, and to make Romani women economically independent.
Belki de bunların ilk adımı olarak erken yaşta evlilikleri önlemektir.
And perhaps the first step, one of the first steps should be prevention of early marriages within the society.
Kendisi daha çocukken kucağına bebek alan bir kadından ne bekleyebilirsiniz?
So while she herself is a child and having a child, what do you expect from this girl? Like, you know, she has a baby. She's herself still a child, like age of 13, 14, and now she has a baby, and so what kind of a life she can expect?
Ancak çok önemli birkaç nokta daha var.
But we have to also mention a few more important points.
Kadının rolündeki değişim erkek zihniyetinde bir dönüşümle alakalıdır.
The position of the women in the society and the Roma rights movement also is linked with a paradigm shift within the men's mentality.
Tüm roman örgütlerinin yapısının sorgulanması, yeniden tasarlanması gerekir.
We should question the structure of all Roma civil society movement, and we should redesign these organizations.
Yani roman hareketine kadının elinin değmesi gerekir.
So we need a woman hand touching Roma movement.
Romani Godi bunu başlattı.
And Romani Godi started that.
Yani büyük bir zihinsel dönüşüm, tüm cinsel kimliklerin aslında dayanışması gibi.
What we are talking about is a big paradigm shift, a transformation of the mind, and also solidarity of all gender identities.
Her alanda ya hep beraber ya hiçbirimiz.
We can say that either we are all together or none of us.
Meyek romisyon, meyek romisyon. Ben bir insanım, ben bir kadınım.
I'm a human being, I'm a woman.
İyi ki Roma Nigodi var, iyi ki bizler varız.
I can easily, and I'm proud to say that thanks that we have Roma Nigodi, and thanks that we are here.
Opera Roma.
Opera Roma.
Thanks a lot, Ayça and Serkan, for this very interesting discussion, and I think we all learned a lot about your organization, about the Roma movement in Turkey, and I would like to open the floor to the audience. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to raise your hand.
I have a request. If you are going to ask a question to Ayça, please make it short because I have to translate into Turkish. So if you make a statement like 10 minutes, then I'm not a professional translator. So
Romina nga
Romina from Albania. The question is for the whole movement. Okay, I am glad to hear that there is a new movement in Turkey with this type of nature and organization which is based in the community, which is doing very positive work to improve the situation of the Roma community there. I wanted to know, because you expressed a lot of challenges that you are facing. So what I would like to know is, were you able to create some sort of a relationship, not close one, but to negotiate with institutions so that issues of the community can be advanced? And are these institutions in Turkey amicable, or are they ready to talk to you, or do they see you as an adversary or someone that cannot be cooperated with? Thank you.
Thank you. As I mentioned when I was talking, that collaboration with Human Rights Association is really important for us, and we see this one lesson learned from past, that let's say we are calling traditional leaders. Traditional leaders, they didn't create this relationship, cooperations. When we start our way, when we start our journey, we told that we put a strategic action collaborating with all with reliable Roma NGOs and reliable human rights associations. That's why we created a network for us, around 25 Roma NGOs in the fields that we rely on them. And another point is to include and collaborate with Human Rights Association in Turkey, that, as I told, we are part of Human Rights Association supporting network that's more than 20 of high-level and reliable Human Rights Associations. They are included. We are part of this movement, this collaboration. Plus, we are a member of European Roma Rights Center network for Roma Rights Network. So up to our plans, we are as we schedule for national and international collaborations, and still we are up to our agenda that we would like to raise our collaboration with more networks and with more reliable national and international human rights associations. Faleminderit.
Can I add something to that? First of all, unlike Balkan countries, Turkey, Roma issues is not top in the agenda in Turkey. Actually, it's not in the agenda at all, because we have Kurdish problem, this problem, that problem, so we have bigger problems than Roma. So don't expect a Balkan approach to Roma issues. It's still invisible. And second, especially in the last 15 years of his administration, Erdogan regime stopped communicating with the civil society. They had this habit in the past, but now one man decides. So in Turkey we have a beautiful regime that you should copy. We elect one person and then he does everything rest. He elects everybody, selects everybody, etc., etc. So it's a very economical regime. So you don't have to elect several people, etc. So bureaucracy do not negotiate with civil society. They don't take their opinion. They just prepare a document. It can be Roma, environment, whatever, and then they put in front of you. And this is what I want to say. EU is also responsible from that, because when the government prepares a Roma strategy without any consultation with Roma NGOs, human rights organizations, and when they put this document, whatever, in front of the EU, they said, okay, fine, it's done. If you do that, you encourage this government to continue like that. Just to elaborate 1 more minute on this, the ministry, like 10 years ago or less, prepared a very strong strategy and action plan, very comprehensive, with allocation of resources, budget, and so on and so forth. And then, as a part of the visa liberalization negotiation, European Union demanded 72 arrangements from Turkish government, and one of them was Roma strategy. And in 2 nights, they shrank this comprehensive document into 15 pages, which doesn't include any financial allocation, no responsibility. Bernard has a brilliant critical report on that strategy. You can access at ERR's website. And EU said, oh, great, fine, you did your job. So they clicked that. I mean, then shut up, then they don't have the right to talk about Roma rights in Turkey, the problems, and so on and so forth, because they're also by not taking any position into such stupid things, they are legitimizing this process.
We also have a question from online. Mr. Orhan, can you hear us? Okay, then we can go ahead.
I'll sit nearby you. Hi to everyone. I am Giulietta Devoli, and I represent the network of Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian women organizations, mainly involved in the field of gender-based violence, with a special focus on domestic violence and early marriages in So I have, first of all, thanks to both panelists. I have a question for Ayce. I am interested to know about the situation in regard of awareness of women belonging to Roma community in Turkey about domestic violence, especially domestic violence and other forms of violence against women, how much they are aware about these phenomena as such, or more or less they are in a maybe more or less normalized, like all forms of violence that occur against them. Are they aware about the ways on how to report the cases, about the institutions involved in the field of domestic violence and early marriages? Do they have courage to do so? And whenever they report cases, I guess there are reported cases by Roma women in Turkey, how do they get treated by the relevant institutions? Are they treated properly in compliance with standard operating procedures and applicable laws in relevant applicable laws in Turkey, or they are just ignored because there is a case reported by a Roma woman and just treated as simple as possible? Thank you.
Öncelikle sorunuz için çok teşekkür ederim.
First of all, thank you very much for the question.
Şöyle, aslında kadınlar şiddete uğradıklarında bunu normalleştiriyorlar. Yani normal, onlara göre şiddete uğramak. Yani normalleştiriyorlar derken aslında bununla savaşacak şeyleri yok, yani güçleri yok.
Actually, we can say that they try to normalize this violence because, not because they accept it, but they don't have the power capacity to challenge this.
Kendi aile içerisinde işte kuzenimden örnek vermek istiyorum mesela.
For example, I can give a personal example from my cousin.
3 çocuğu var
She
ve
has 3 daughters, 3 children.
Eşinden hem psikolojik hem fiziksel olarak yıllardır şiddet görüyor.
And her husband is physically and psychologically abusing her.
Ama bunu dışarı yansıtmamak için elinden geleni yapıyor çünkü ekonomik olarak bir bağımsız, yani ekonomik özgürlüğü elinde yok.
But she does her best not to reflect this to outside the home because she doesn't have economic liberty.
Ve ailesinin de ona destek verecek maddi anlamda ve manevi anlamda da güçleri yok.
And her parents do not have the economic power to support her when if she leaves her husband.
Bu da kadını çıkmaz bir aslında labirentin içine sokuyor.
So this dead end labyrinth that she is in.
Bunu polise ya da işte gerekli kamu kurumlarını bildirseler bile işte Türkiye'de KADES uygulaması var.
Even if they report this to police or other state agencies.
Yoksulluk anlamında en alt tabakadan bahsediyoruz toplumda ve internet kullanımı çok az ve kadınların hiçbirisinin elinde neredeyse işte Android telefon yok. Bu yüzden KADES uygulamasını da kullanamıyorlar maalesef.
There is an application in Turkey called KADES. Women can report the violence that they are subject to run online thing. But we are talking about the most poor part of the country, the population of the country. They don't have access to mobile phones, Android phones, whatever, or internet. So they cannot use this application.
Yani bu uygulamanın da Roman kadınlara bir faydası olmuyor çok aslında.
So this application is a tool that doesn't help Romani women. So they have to go out of the settlement and then physically report to the police, which is in a way also endanger their position.
Yani kadının ekonomik özgürlüğünün burada olmamasının belki en önemli nedenlerinden birisi de işte mahallede yaşayan kadınların kapalı bir toplum içerisinde yaşıyorlar ve işte şu algı vardır ya işte Roman kadınlar işte Romanlar genellikle esmerdir belli falan çerçeve var ve işe başvuru yaptıklarında da zaten Roman olduğu anlaşıldığında zaten işe alınmıyorlar.
And in most cases, I mean, there are several examples that they are not employed when physically they are visible as Roma.
O yüzden bunu normalleştirmeseler de normalleştirmek zorunda kalıyorlar aslında bir
So
noktada.
if we come back to the first part, even though they don't normalize the violence, they have to because they have to accept it because of the circumstances. They don't have the tools to capacity and whatever resources to challenge that.
Tekrardan teşekkür ederim.
Thanks again.
Yeah, also I would like to add something regarding your question that as Aicha told that even they do not accept it, they do not normalize it, but they have to normalize it, that we have really sad stories and cases recently they came out in Turkey, like in last 2 years we have some cases regarding Roma girls. I don't want to say because they were really young, and they in domestic violence they apply many times to police, but their approach of police was, okay, this is a Roma family, in a way they will solve among them, we don't want to intervene that much, but at the end 2 life was ended, and we lost 2 Romani women because of domestic violence and irresponsible approach of police. So, as I told, they had to normalize because they do not have tools to cope with this issue.
Actually, I want to add one more thing. When we talk about early marriages in Roma communities, it is different than some other communities. In other communities, a young girl, 14, 15 years old, is forced to marry to 60, 70 years old men. In Roma communities, it's not the case. If the girl is 13, 14 years old, boy also is 14, 15 years old. So they are very close. It doesn't change the severity of the problem, but it is different in other parts of the country. Yeah, I just want to add this because Turkey is a big country and there are different ethnic groups and communities, but in Roma communities, I don't think they witness a very old man marrying to 13, 14 years old. They are both kids. This is a very big problem because you force to children instead of playing something, they are married at the age of 14, 15, and then, of course, this affects the dropouts, education, all combined, and then the problem continues.
And here we have also a difference in the consequences. I mean, to a girl or to a boy. Much severe consequences we have to a girl who gets married. I mean, especially under 16 years old. Yeah, thank you very much.
Hello. So, thank you very much for the information. Anyone from the panelists can answer on a question. So, what I want to learn is 2 things here now. So, I will not dare to compare how is the situation, what is the difference or similarities between Kosovo Roma and Turkish Roma. I see that it's quite complicated in both countries, yours and ours here. But what I want to ask is, like, how hard is to mobilize communities there? So you can answer this question if you want. So how hard is to mobilize community? For example, just imagine you have a case, right? So Erdogan decides to go and say something wrong about Romas there, and then like you want to do a protest there in Istanbul, somewhere, wherever. Yeah? And is it hard to mobilize community? Does these communities are able or they are willing to go and protest and say to are they able to do so? I mean, are they free? Do they have a right for a protest? With not having a consequence. When I'm saying consequences, I mean concretely like the police can like come and they can put half of them in prison and things like that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Avni. Mobilizing community. Let's say that is occasionally sometimes is easy, sometimes really difficult. But the most important thing is manipulating community here. That I want to share one anecdote that like 3 months ago, we conducted one field visit in one region of Tekirdağ, Çerkezköy. In Çerkezköy, municipality decided to demolish houses that they live there like 50 years, and they contact firstly to us because we provide legal support to people in Turkey. They contact to us, we went there, we organized one protest. It was really easy, and media was there. Everything was fine, I mean, for protesting and mobilizing community. Everything was fine. Later, with our lawyers, we prepared petitions, and we told that in 2 days we need to submit them. And we leave the petitions, these things, just they need to sign and to bring to court, and that's all. But after 2 days, when we call them back, if you completed to complain about the case, they didn't respond us. And what was wrong thing here, they were manipulated by the local authorities plus some opposition. I mean, not opposition, but supporter of municipalities. That's supporter Roma of municipalities, and they told that if you complain about municipality, you will not have any compensation, but you will stay in street, like this something. You know how it is functioning when it is coming for community. Then they didn't complain, and they told that we will not, so we cannot force because it's their decision. And what happened after this demonstration in media, everything, then after 1 month, their houses, they were demolished. And they received just like 500 euros or 1,000 euros compensation, and now they are trying to survive. But now we don't have chance to build up back these houses. So just I want to explain how is mobilizing is difficult, but manipulation is really high level in Roma movement in Turkey. Because this is just one anecdote, but we have many similar cases that when we conduct field visit for any topic, then because also we need to share them on Facebook or Instagram what we do to show for all human rights associations and Roma movement that there is something here there. So after these visits, these meetings, someone else is calling someone from the street or from, and always you have to deal with these manipulations. Yeah. Hope I responded.
Aslında az önce de kısaca bahsetmiştim. Türkiye'de vatandaşlık bağıyla bağlı olan herkes Türktür demiştim. Ve Türkiye'de Türklük üst bir kimlik olduğu için diğer tüm aslında etnik kimlikleri Türkiye yok sayıyor. Bu nedenle aslında Romanlar da bundan çok fazla, bu milliyetçilikten çok fazla etkilenmiş durumda.
As I mentioned during my presentation, officially and legally, everybody is considered Turkish in Turkey by constitution, and this creates. They are trying to introduce this Turkishness as a upper identity, and which promotes nationalism.
Ve Romanların birçoğu Türkiye'de aslında kendini Roman olarak değil, Türk olarak ifade ediyor.
So many Roma identify themselves as Turkish, not Roma.
Ve Roman hareketine de mesela mahallede birçok kişi aslında hala ön yargılı.
And many people, in my opinion, in the Roma settlements are prejudiced against Roma movement.
O yüzden bu tarz eylemleri ya da işte protestoları düzenlerken daha çok Roman eğitimli gençlerle bunu yapabiliyoruz bizler.
That's why in most cases the population participation of the neighborhood population is limited, but mostly educated youth is leading such actions.
Teşekkürler.
Orhan, do you want to ask a question?
No, I have one very small comment, actually, something that might be important for the meeting that you're holding in Prishtina. I am actually here in Izmir, and I act as advisor to the mayor, Tunsoyer, of the Izmir. I'm from the May actually in Turkey and having this post, and I do understand perfectly what Mr. Baysak said, what Ms. Tutan said, and as well Sinan Gökçen is well known about situation of Roma in Turkey. But all these troubles and all these challenges that are existing are very similar to many countries. For example, me as an Orhan, I don't exist as a Rome in Netherlands because we are all Dutch there, as all people here in Turkey are Turkish. So this is the course of the new democracies actually that are fighting for the identity of the communities and nations that are existing in today Europe. Here I am examining those issues in a sense of kind of a project that would be accepted by the community. From the May and up to date, I can say that I met about 1,000 Romani activists around of the Izmir, because Izmir has 300,000 Roma in a city, so you can imagine such very big community. And taking into account my experience, so one of the first ever thing as a project, we thought of making so-called law clinic. Law clinic can address all these issues that we talk about it. And in the same time, I think that your organization can have a very strong impact on education of the Roma as civil rights defenders in a real sense of it. Because I do see, not only here in Turkey for years, that Romani movement in general has to have an education about civil rights. And this is it that as an answer to the challenges that we have. Turkey and Roma in Turkey, they are not good friends in kind of a general view. Why there is no such friendship, there is no explanation, but I can say also that many things relies on the Roma civil society in Turkey that is not so well organized. Many troubles are in and around it. A domination of some leaders, Roma leaders, I might say, that are doing kind of a job, a one-man show, and so on and so on. And my end comment is that I believe that Baysak, Gökçen, and Ayça Tutar can get in much more closer relation to your organization to take into account those experiences that you have, not only in Kosovo, but also in other countries. I think those role model activists could play a very important role on shaping the Roma civil society here in Turkey or in Izmir. I find out that here in Izmir there are about 10 to 15 very highly educated Roma men, women who can contribute to this situation. And I think also that we should share experiences in real sense, share experiences throughout various projects in many levels, local and global level, European level, and so on. And that has to be very concrete made plans and strategy how to do it. And in the end, I want to greet everyone there. I saw some good friends, long-stand friends there. I hope that you will have a very fruitful meeting.
Thank you. We are approaching the end of the discussion, so I would like to give the floor to Serkan and Ayça for like 1 minute final words. Thank you.
Yeah, once again, I would like to thank all friends and civil rights defenders to organize this event and to give us a chance to talk more about Roma in Turkey. I want to say that in Turkey, let's say that for long periods, Roma, they were alone. And international institutions, foundations, and also international Roma foundations, institutions, they were not so eager to work there. They didn't want to work there that much. So this give us more pessimistic energy, but I need to invite all international foundations and especially international Roma foundations that you need to work in Turkey because there are 5 million people. We know that political situation is not that much clear, but we have to, we live there with this reality and you have to support us. Thank you.
Ben de öncelikle Civil Rights Defenders'a ve tüm katılımcılara çok teşekkür ediyorum.
First of all, I would like to thanks again to CRD and all participants.
Güzel bir zirveydi.
It was a very nice meeting. Thank you very much.
And we can close the discussion. Thanks all for coming.
Thank you. We will proceed immediately with another panel. If you agree, or would you like to have a coffee? I mean, I saw like 2 hours block, and then we will have lunch and coffee afterwards. Panel discussion? Coffee afterwards. What do you, I mean, we are open. I didn't foresee it, but I think we can have
Hi everyone, I'm Dafina Halili. I'm a journalist at Kosovo 2.0, and today it's my pleasure to be part of Western Balkans Roma Summit and to moderate a very important and at the same time empowering discussion on building alliances between Roma and LGBTI plus movements as a way to make a difference in the lives of Roma and LGBTI plus people. To discuss multiply operations and the importance of intersectional movements and mobilization, I'm delighted to have here with me Dejo Mate, Academy in Exile Fellow, postdoctoral researchers at the Institute for Advanced Study in the Humanities in Essen, Arber Nuhio, Executive Director from Center for Social Group Developments, and Romina Sefa from Center for Social Advocacy Albania. Roma of minority sexual and gender identities, they experience oppression, inequality for being Roma and also for being at the same time LGBTI+. And me as a journalist, many times in the field was faced with the fact that the Roma community in Kosovo, and I think it is like the same for the whole region, but in Kosovo it extends also to Ashkali and Egyptian communities. Their lives usually are carried out in a separated, segregated outskirts of towns, of cities, and if I can illustrate it, is where the life or the line for other Kosovo residents ends, it is where life of Roma community starts. And usually the public life is limited only to some grocery shops. And within these segregated, separated parts of town, there are these incredible stories of survival and also at the same time of violence, of oppression and resistance. And there are like many Roma, gays or lesbians or trans women or trans men that face multiplied discrimination because of the ethnicity, at the same time because of the gender identity or sexual orientation. And I think, Dejo, I would like to start with you, because I think when we talk about these multiplied oppressions, and how they shape one's life, and how the identities are fluid, and that the Roma identity is fluid, shaped by different interlocking axes of inequality. It is something that academia, I believe, but also scholarship, different scholarship, literature, already tackled on. When we talk about the whole idea of intersectional oppression, intersectionality movements, it is something that is there. We kind of like, there are many years that we talk about it. And on the other hand, you have the feminist movement, and you have today the current feminist thinkers like Nancy Fraser that all the time advocate for feminism for 99%, meaning they argue that ideas of liberal feminism, radical feminism, Marxist feminism need to be combined in order to fight for all women, but also for all men, and that gender oppression is not a result only of one product, like sexism, but it's also a result of racism, of xenophobia, of colonialism, and capitalism. So can we talk, actually, this is maybe like a question for the end, but I want to start from here. Can we talk about alliances between Roma and LGBT movements without talking for an alliance with the feminist movements? Can there exist an alliance between Roma and LGBT without actually talking about the importance to dismantle patriarchy?
Thank you very much. I'm really grateful and my honor to being here and talking about this issue. And I'm always telling that I'm not only I'm the first bird in this all Romani LGBTI movement. So basically, I would like to mention when we started our movement, I mean the new wave movement, let's say this, because I'm not telling that previously, the previous generations from 1980s or 1990s, there were no LGBTI people. Just that is a difference, like our generation are more brave and we have more resources and maybe we are more empowered thanks to them, that at the moment we can talk about LGBTI Roma issues in general. So basically, based on my previous studies and work, so I was focusing on different generations from 1940s until 2020s. And so it's turned out that yes, yes, there were Romani leaders who were part of the Romani LGBTI movement. And no, not Romani LGBTI movement, main Romani movement, but they were LGBTI people. So they had also LGBTI identities as well. But the question was from them side that do they have enough power and do they have enough alliance to discuss openly this kind of multiplied oppressions. I call it intersectional anti-Gypsyism. And my simple answer, no, they haven't enough empowerment in that time because the priorities in 1970s, 1980s, it was totally different of the Romani movement. It was morely like emancipation and visibility of basic human rights of Romani people. And that's why, so our generations, I consider us youngsters, even though I'm not that young anymore, the third generation Romani intellectuals. And then basically we had, or kind of we have now the resources, also the identity, let's say, much more identity, to challenge the society around us and the status quo as well. So when we started in 2015 or 14, we met first time in Budapest with Vera Kurtic and David Tischer and some other feminist young women as well, and some supporters, Romani and non-Romani supporters as well, who were kind of supported our initiatives. And it's very important to address in that time, we didn't know that what we start or what we are addressing, because we haven't concepts, we haven't any kind of strategy, let's say. We felt that we are part of a community which is not the Romani mainstream. Of course, I never will deny my identity as Romani, even if I'm in Turkey, even if I'm in the Netherlands, even if I'm in Germany. So my identity and my Romani identity is stable and it always will be part. And there is always a movement in any countries. So anyway, that was my comment. And at the same time, also, I was thinking how I can join to the LGBTI movement. And then, so I was knocking for different doors. The doors were closed, let's say. And then in 2014-15, when we met with David and Vera, we felt that we should do something in this question. And I said, like, we haven't concept. Now we're talking about intersectional oppressions of Romani LGBTI people, intersectional anti-Gypsyism, LGBTI movement, and so on and so on. And what we did actually, that we adopted the previous kind of concepts and studies from the post-colonial and feminist studies, but we felt also, or we're feeling as well, that it's of course it's knowledge production and building movement, but that is not the same, I guess, and not the right patterns. Of course, we can adapt some elements, but in order to empower our communities and move forward, we have to build our own knowledge, we have to build our own visibility, we have to institutionalizing, and so on and so on. And then, so we started our movement because we didn't see ourselves in the movement. We didn't see ourselves in the LGBTI movement. Of course, there are supportive alliances, and I should say in this point that if I'm grateful, no, I'm not grateful, because I think it should be normal that if we are sharing same identities, that we are not oppressing the others. So, and anyway, so there are LGBTI people who not really welcome for our initiative and for our movement ideas. But at the same time, I also have to address, as you mentioned previously, that Romani movement also were distanced from us, and they also closed our doors. So we couldn't just enter the room And that's why we created our own space. And I have a saying, which I think is very valid and a little bit powerful as well. So if I don't have a chair next to the table, I'm taking the table, and that's what we did. So I don't care about the other chairs of the other movements. Of course, I can have place there, but in order to be visible, I just took the table, and I packed my stuffs on that. So we started to produce our knowledge. When we started, we haven't any knowledge on Romani LGBTI issues. Now we have journal. I edited a journal on Romani LGBTI issues with Central European University. We have books, we have reports, we have declarations. We have also, and I'm very proud of that, like, for example, now in new Romani strategy, there is a line that Romani LGBTI issues should be addressed. And don't take me hypocrites, but that's only one line. It took like 10 years of recognition, but we did. They recognized that Romani LGBTI people exist. We are not from Mars or Venus sometimes, you know, but it depends on the content. And then, but we did it. And of course, I know that there will be more what we should do, and challenging the status quo and the social system as well. And I believe in alliances until a certain level and certain lines. And don't take me wrong. Of course, we need each other's support. But also, I feel and I think if a person who supposed to be our alliance oppress one of our members, I consider the person not alliance anymore, because it's not. I think a supportive alliance should recognize them values and also them capacity and access and resources and spaces, and also, of course, we are also. So I'm a little bit confused. So back. So our alliances, of course, we have different. Values, capacities, needs, and accesses. And I think this kind of goods should be channeled to the movement priorities and goals. And if someone who say that our alliances and this kind of goods and supportive values, they turning to them own development, I think that is not an alliance anymore for us. And it's the same. I think if I'm taking a place or I'm taking too much place, even from a Romani LGBTI person, and especially I'm talking about Romani lesbians and Romani transgender people, if I feel that I'm taking a space and place from them, I should and I must step back in order to support them visibility. And I think this, maybe I'm talking too much. So this, which we should learn, we should reflect a little bit self-reflection as well. I think it's very important, like what is the line when we are oppressing the other, and what is the line when we criticizing. Of course, criticism is a basic things for me, because I believe that without criticism we cannot move forward. But I think we have to really find a tiny line when we oppressing the others, and we much more taking our positions in a kind of hypocritic position for our own development. So this is my comment on it at the moment.
Thank you very much. In Kosovo and also in Albania, I think it's safe to say that still there is like no very high visibility of Roma LGBTI plus people taking the movement in their hands. But what about organizations that are here, like organizations that you lead, you in Kosovo and you in Albania? How much the activism that you were part and organization that you were part, but also organization could create safe spaces for other identities? In your case, for Roma, Ashkadi, Egyptian people, in your case, for LGBTI plus people. Okay, maybe start with Romina and then we go to
E para, doja të thoja që
First of all, I would say that when we started as a Center for Social Advocacy 4 years ago, in our travels, in our journey, since we are a organization focused on Roma and Egyptian community rights, and the majority of us that are involved are simply are all members of the community, mostly from the Roma and Egyptian communities. Of course, it was undoubtedly difficult to build channels of communication with other organizations, and this because the organizations that were established earlier than us, establishing our own organization, had an entirely different approach, and the manner how they acted with the community differed extensively. In fact, when 9 years ago we started with our efforts, we can say that the majority of the Roma and Egyptian communities in Albania, as well as Tirana, since Tirana has a high focus of Roma and Egyptian communities, these families were taught with the aid extended to them by other organizations simply through food packets. And the moment that we started with our activism, this was, I would say, very challenging, because we would need to carry out the cycle that they were used of experiencing previously. And in fact, our philosophy is that to make great changes in the community as well as in relation to the institution. This, of course, at the local and central levels. And the main goal is for self-empowerment of the families through what we do, so that they are capable and accountable to the institutions to seek improvement of their condition and situation. It's been 10 years that we started working. I was 20 at the time when we started with this effort, and now I'm nearly 30. And I feel great, in fact, that despite this being a challenging effort, because we accomplished somewhat to change the approach of the institutions. If previously our doors were shut, were closed, and no one received us to discuss regarding Roma and Egyptian community matters, today we are those that if there's a plan or a budget or anything that needs to be consulted, that is at the governmental level, they contact us and sit down and discuss with us, because they have understood quite well that we're very close to the community. We do a great job in the field, and they know quite well that we have managed to identify and read and understand the problems that the community is faced with. And I feel at least good about this, because we have managed to at least be in a position where where would be lacking the dialogue between the institutions and the community. Of course, there is room for improvement. Not everything is as perfect. But I think that during these 10 years of my involvement as activist and other organizations that I collaborate with, I think that we have made quite a progress in this regard, and we've also managed to change the segments of a group of citizens. And if I may just use an example to illustrate this. For example, the community police against the Roma and Egyptian recyclers, mostly Roma, because Roma are those that collect the recyclable materials a lot more due to their inability to do any other jobs, since there is a lack of alternatives in employment due to the decisions that the commissioner has taken in favor of these families, discriminatory decisions. Today, the community police does not bother those families anymore. Has left them alone, and there's no further physical violence, because you could find them catching them during the time that they would be collecting this recyclable material. They would exercise physical violence against them. We saw that this year, at least, this has not been occurring, and this because the community has been under pressure, and we as an organization submitted a request together with 7 recyclers to the commissioner against discrimination, who came up with a decision favoring them. There were initiatives from other organizations as well that the commissioner rendered a decision for discrimination, and the cases were submitted all the way to the court from the remuneration due to the discrimination that these families were faced with. And I think that these are funds that we have at our disposal, and that actually change the approach, the behavior of the institution, and improves this in favor of the people. Additionally, what I would like to bring to your attention is, in fact, our inclusion, involvement, in this case mine, with feminist movements in Albania, where part of these movements are also organizations that deal with the rights of LGBT communities. If I hadn't been doing this work, and if I weren't an activist for quite so long, I would perhaps be one of those persons, biased persons, and simply would not see the potential that the LGBT community has in relation to how can we use our common effort and coordination to move forward any issues that concern us. Of course, sexual orientation can be a segment that perhaps frequently it might happen that various organizations with different focuses would be brought together based on this. But I think that we have things in common. Well, these things that we have in common is discrimination, lack of employment alternatives, or housing, sheltering, that bring us together and make us stronger. Personally, recently I joined initiatives that the LGBT communities undertake in Albania, and I've attempted to share my experience and expertise in relation to how LGBT community could raise their concerns and pursue them at the institutional level. Frequently, we've collaborated in various discussions and direct meetings with institutions, and of course, anytime something happens with feminist movements, anytime there are women that are raped or murdered. And in Albania, truth be told, in the last 2 years, a lot of women were killed by their own husbands, and a reaction was required, the form of becoming solidar with everything that happened. And Roma issues versus issues of white women should not be seen as separate issues. If we want to be good activists to contribute to the benefit of the society, of course, then our skills and abilities that we have gained throughout the years, we should use that for the benefit of the society and to be where anytime the society needs us. And I based this on my own efforts, on my own self, because anytime there was any protests or reactions for anything that may have occurred in Albania, but mostly in Tirana, since this is the capital and the institutions are located there as well, I was there sharing my contribution for numerous issues, because I never wanted to be identified simply as a Romina that comes from a Roma community, works for the Roma community, and that's that. No. In fact, I wanted to be identified as an activist that belongs to the Roma community, minority, but that contributes to the entire society and the problems that it's faced with. Because only if a society is good for everyone, then it can be good for Roma and Egyptians as well. We cannot fight for limited rights and to simply work only in relation to Roma or Egyptian communities. And this is the problem that we have in Albania, because there are extremely sophisticated organizations there that could draft very good projects and might actually be benefiting grants from EU or other donor organization, but and simply implement a project. But when the time comes to be out in the field, to be close next to the families when they are faced with emergencies or difficult and critical situations, they are simply not there, despite the fact that you continuously see activists versus the state who did not compromise in relation to doing this work. And those that absorb these gigantic funds simply deal with increasing the capacities of organizations and other stakeholders of the civil society, whereas the time is here now that we have built our capacities to that extent that I think that it is time to be more proactive, to do better things and to change lives of our minorities as well as other people, needy people that exist in our country or Balkan-wide, because in general, Balkans is faced with the same problems and the same dynamics in development in relation to human rights. Thank you kindly. So I will speak in Albanian, if I may then. Arbor nuk hiu, just to get to the topic briefly, CEO with an organization that was established in 2002 and works for LGBT rights in Kosovo. For previously, I worked with the international organization, and I mostly dealt with the human rights field, more specifically the rights of our citizens, Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptians. At the time when we began our efforts as an organization for LGBT rights, undoubtedly, the focus, in addition to others, was also the inclusion of LGBTI citizens of Kosovo, with a focus on why my focus was always on Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian citizens is because based on my perspective at the time as well as now, I can see that they are less empowered to seek their rights and to fight for their rights, and especially, of course, compared to Serb citizens or Bosnian citizens or others. And this is exactly one of the reasons that the idea to include within the staff of organization members of other communities was and continue and remains an idea of mine, but it is not easy to do so. Since 2004-5, we had, if I'm not mistaken, we've had colleagues of Ashkali communities, and then later on from Turk communities as well as Ashkali, and they were great at their work, but taking into consideration that LGBTI persons are extremely stigmatized, and I can quite easily say I believe that they're even more stigmatized than Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian communities in Kosovo in itself. The switch happens here and there, the discrimination, stigmatization, and the non-inclusion in the societal life. This is where that happens. This is the reason why we have common common challenges in our struggles towards advancing our rights. But of course, at the same time, I believe that these organizations, whether those that work for LGBTI rights as well as others that work for Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian rights, the priorities, this is my impression, the priorities are not the same. The priorities differ, and this is why greater, more intensive cooperation that should be there is simply missing, unfortunately. But I'm trying to justify this because of the fact that the focus of LGBT organization is elsewhere versus the focus of organizations that work for advancing Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian rights is somewhere else as well. Therefore, in addition to having this healthy level of communication and good communication for the aim of jointly advancing numerous issues, undoubtedly we need to unfortunately conclude that the cooperation that should and is expected to be there is simply not there. However, I believe that, now perhaps I would say the reasons why, not about the organization, but perhaps why other ethnic groups that might be gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, are not part of the movement is exactly this discrimination that occurs with these citizens, because in addition to the societal discrimination and the state discrimination, which is racial, and we have other discrimination that also is related to sexual orientation and gender identity. And my workings during the 20 years in this field, in this sector, has also uncovered another issue. While our colleagues, we mostly Ashkali, less Roma, we had colleagues that were part of our staff. They mostly were boys, men, so there were no women, and it was difficult to find a Roma woman who's also lesbian. It was a lot easier to have access to trans women, Roma trans women, but not with Roma women themselves. And I think that this is then multiplied twice, thrice this oppression, even 5 times higher, and the opportunities of Roma trans women is very low to have space within the community itself, and let alone beyond that. The good point is that I believe strongly that today the organization that work for Roma, Ashkali and Egyptian rights are quite empowered versus previous times that they simply were lacking. But I think empowerment needs to be higher, and we need to find manners of cooperation, because regardless of our priorities perhaps not matching, not being equal, the same, our challenges are similar and the problems are also similar. And especially in integration in into Kosovan society for Roma, Ashkali and Egyptian citizens, as well as gay, lesbian, transgender and others. Integration is a problem, perhaps a person, let me say trans or woman or gay woman and lesbians as well, because these younger groups are more discriminated against because of our conservative, patriarchal societies in favor men versus women. Let us not enter the gender issues where there are numerous problems. I can say that a boy, gay Roma boy, would have it a lot more difficult than a gay Albanian boy, because at first look, an Albanian gay boy will not be identified as gay. He will be simply identified as a common citizen, the way that they won't like to identify them. Whereas Roma boy, gay boy, would be identified based on their skin color, and if they find out that they were gay, it's going to become dreadful within their own inner circle, starting with the family and let alone the society. So these are the challenges that I believe why LGBTI persons belonging that are from Roma, Ashkali and Egyptian communities are not part of the movement. This is one of the reasons why this is the case. And not only them, it's simply very difficult to have them of other communities as well as members of the staff and the movement. We've had a person who was from Turkish communities, and now 2 persons that were from Ashkali communities, and no others from other communities, regardless of the fact that the sexual orientation, gender identity are not related to ethnicity. Because the reason that it has nothing to do with ethnicity, gender, religion, it is a lot more comprehensive, because we do not look at these, but we simply look at promoting, advancing our rights jointly, regardless of ethnicity, religion, place of residing, etc. Just for your information, we render various services for LGBTI community, and believe it or not, if, for example, I'm not here to collect statistics of the organization, but more or less over 40% of services are used by Roma Ashkali communities, and especially services that are related to, in fact, those services that the majority of our citizens actually get from us, of the LGBTI communities. More or less various services. When I say these are the psychosocial, free legal aid, health services, because we offer other health services as well. We offer packages, especially since the pandemic. We've also offered hygienic and food packages as well. And of course, mostly we've targeted families or members of the communities that are on the social assistance or find themselves in difficult economic situations. And out of all of those services, I can say 30 to 40 of those are received by the LGBTI communities coming from Roma, Ashkali and Egyptian communities as such. Thank you. I'm
like from LGBTQI community in Kosovo, but also region, and also from the people that have in focus and Roma rights. So actually I would kind of like open the floor immediately to others. Anybody who has a comment, question, because I'm sure that all your reflection and thoughts can contribute very much to this discussion. Avne, yes.
No, but I was thinking like to speak in Romanes, because in Romanes I can really express myself well, but I'm not sure the translation is working or not, huh, Sarah? Yes, okay. Thank you very much. All right. Oh, yeah, yeah. I will wait, no problem. I know Avdi will kill me now, but like he's translating, that's good. Okay, so can I know, wait a moment, please. Very short. Okay. So, mi sjeva kao stvari, Dafina, can I? Yeah. Okay, so mi sjeva kao stvari so definiscizla cale dune grupacien, sar e romen. Okay. I can speak in English, but I just don't want to be misunderstood. I want to be... Okay. Okay, so...
I think that issues that define groups, especially Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian, in the context of Kosovo and the LGBTI community, define discrimination and being treated differently by the majority community. I know this for many years. I have a lot of friends and members of family that are part of this community. There are those from the Roma community that are also part of the LGBTI community. As far as I remember this summit and those held in Prishtina and Belgrade, the Pride Parade, I don't understand why we as Roma or as the LGBTI community, we should tell others or indicate to others to which group we belong to for things that we believe we belong to. If I'm a Roma or a member of the LGBTI or both communities, why should we prove to others who we are and what we are? I am what I am, but what other people say about me is no concern of mine. What is the reason for this? Is it the government, the society, or aliens? Why should we define ourselves as Roma or LGBTI? Why should we prove this to other people?
Selfish now, and I will respond to this question. Thanks, and thank you, Avnit, that you clarified this issue and question as well. And I just, for the previous comments and remarks, I hope that in some sentences was wrong the translation. Yeah, let's put in that way. I don't agree with many things what you said. I'm okay with that. I mean, we are human. We're doing different things. But I really hope that the translation was bad.
Can you maybe elaborate further on this? Like
yeah, I mean,
part you don't agree, because I think it's also important for everybody to understand it.
Yes, I think maybe you mentioned like you try to include Romani LGBTI people in your work, and there are a lot of gaps and challenges and so on, and you try to open the door as well, but there are difficulties, and it's very hard to to include Romani lesbians and Romani transgender people. And this is what my main issue, that always the leadership, like how we can expect that the Romani trans woman, for example, will enter a cis white male space. They will never enter to your space because you have a lot of privileges which they will never have. And that is also create a huge social distances between different societies and different groups and issues. And that's why I think we need our own spaces, and also I'm answering now for Avni, that we need our own spaces and own places as well, where yes, we can share our own identities, our own struggles, and we can be our own advocate. And also I believe, like, I don't agree with you that we have the same challenges. We don't have the same challenges. I'm really sorry to say this. You were never discriminated racially. You were never excluded, most probably, from a gay bar. You were never segregated in a school which based on your ethnic identity. You were never misgendered because of your gender identity. So we are not sharing the same challenges. Maybe the social exclusion and racism and intolerant attitude structure, which is theoretically very well done in Britain, it's okay, it's fine, but the reality shows totally different. And that's why I'm telling, if you are talking about any kind of movement, let's see, Romani feminist movement, Romani LGBT movement, transgender movement, feminist movement, the leaders, they must be the part of they must be wearing the identities them. I mean, you know, and I will try to be reflecting in this time. And so I know my privileges as a cis gay man, and that's why I have a lot of transgender, so not that's why, but I have a lot of transgender friends, let's say. And I asked once them, like, I'm working basically on international level with them, and I asked them once, like, how can I be part of your movement? How can I support? And this is the white savior attitude. And I'm very ashamed to ask them in that time, because now I recognize that I was reproducing the white savior manners and behaviors. So basically they just reflect to me and they said, like, you are not a trans person, you cannot be. I mean, and I understand, it's fine. It is them space, it is them place, and I have to respect them identities, and them of course, if they need help, they will outreach to you. But anyway, we are wearing a kind of those. I'm also now a middle class guy and so on, and I also now, you know, can I talk about poverty? It will be so hypocrite that I think will be 2 kilo tomatoes on my face in 1 second. You know what I mean? Of course not of course, it's not evident. I came from poverty, deep poverty. I can challenge maybe this kind of knowledge and experiences. But at the moment, I'm a middle class cis man, and it would be so hypocrite for me to talk about transgender people who live in deep poverty. And so just again to reflect to Avni, yes, that's why we need our own institutions, our own NGOs, our own leadership. If there is a Romani movement leadership, Romani movement, the leader must be a Roma person. If there is a Romani feminist movement, the leader must be a Romani feminist. If there is a Roma transgender movement, the leader must be a Romani trans person, because we can maybe, you know, associate somehow and have kind of solidarity and feeling towards each other, but we never sharing the identity. I'm not a Romani woman. How can I talk about in the name of the Romani woman? And then, and yes, so we had a lot of issues and arguments in our movement, and it's a fight still. But I think Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian LGBT people will never outreach to you because of your privileges. And you have to learn your privileges. You have to channel your privileges. And you know, if you want, you will say that, I'm opening the door. You don't have to opening the door. You just, you know, have to reflect for your own, I mean, sorry, it's not a personal, it is not, it's social power. To the power which you're holding. And then, if you want to support, give them money. and then they can do whatever they want. And then they can fight for their own rights, for their own visibility, for their own social exclusion. And again, we don't need white saviors. We are empowered, and I mean, our movement, as I said, developed, and that's why we want to develop much more our movement, but with supportive alliances who can reflect them on their own privileges.
Deja, maybe you want, because then I will give, I mean, Arbor wants to reply to this, but you wanted to add something to Avni's comment?
No, I think I answered to them, like, because we are, you know, it is for so common things to talk about racism. It is like our daily life, like, you know, you're drinking a glass of water. It is kind of like this, is this normalized, I think, in life, because yes, now, you know, and so we challenging or we facing those kind of issues, and especially, for example, again, I'm not in the position to talk about Romani trans person, because in this chair should be now a Romani trans person to speak on these issues. But just think about like how a person could have access to treatment, to access to health, to mental and physical health, with low economic income, without social exclusion, with stigmatization, with racism.
Okay, I think that we, actually what you said I didn't meant. When I'm saying movement, it's not about the organization, it's about the whole bunch of organizations and people who everyone represent it himself, herself, because the movement is not me.
Is there a movement?
There is a movement.
Is there
I mean,
not
LGBTI movement. I'm saying about, I said, it's very hard to have in our LGBTI movement also from other ethnicities.
Maybe in another planet there is a movement, in a Pluto.
Okay, we are calling it movement, so, let's redefine it. So the number of organizations that works on LGBTI issues in Kosovo, unfortunately we do not have from the other ethnic groups who are leading those organizations, because movement is beyond the organization. It's and I think the movement should be inclusive and cannot be segregated or separated. And I don't know what the translation is, but in any case, I didn't see myself as the one who will decide who is going to be part of the movement or not, but there is something that is organic, and it grows by time, and it includes as much as possible organizations. And as I said, why we as LGBT organizations do not have very, let's say, intensive collaboration with Roma, Egyptian, and Ashkelon organizations is because of different priorities. I didn't say that we have the same things. We have some similar challenges. Of course, there is no chance to have the same, but we have similar challenges, especially social exclusion or unacceptance by the majority of the society. And yeah, I mean, still, I believe that movements should be inclusive and should consist whoever is feeling affiliated with a movement, with the causes of that movement, no matter.
I agree that the movement should be inclusive, and that is the keyword, that should be, but in reality, it's not inclusive.
So I'll speak Albanian. Also, for me, it's easier to express myself. Okay, so.
I agree fully with what was said. We have discussed often, depending on who is in charge, depends on the target. We've had lesbians that led the organization. In the organization now, it's me as a trans man, and now we see that there is more participation by trans men. So to be comprehensively representative is impossible, because I think me and Norbert are aware of the privileges we have even within the trans community. If you look at the privileges of a trans man, because of the historical privileges of men in the Balkans and in Kosovo, we are more privileged than trans women, especially Albanian trans men. So if we need time to get more empowerment, to have better representation of trans women in public domain, so we've often discussed with Roma community organizations to create alliances. So we want to discuss, me like a trans man, most of the information from transgender people, I don't have them coming from any source. So we cannot expect that these organizations will have all the resources, but they can work together with different target groups and advance themselves. So we don't have a specific program because it's difficult for a community to come and approach you in these circumstances. Another thing which was not discussed, don't forget the LGBTI community members have grown up in this society. So racism is inherent because they grew up in this society. Because first they were not exposed to information, there were no safe spaces, so it is quite understandable that there is hesitation to be part of a group. But how can we integrate or include organizations that work for the rights of Roma, Ashkali and Egyptians? So there are LGBTI organizations, but on the other side, you have organizations fighting for the rights of Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptian. Because if we don't start discussing this amongst ourselves, it will be very difficult to get a transgender woman from the Roma community or other communities to become part of the leadership.
Said, and what I want to say. If someone is facing challenges that Romani LGBTI people don't entering them office or they don't have outreach to them, then please have a space, take a table on your office, have a Romani LGBTI people, a person, give a chair to them and make it loud that here is this person, here is this office. If you have any question, any issues, related to Romani LGBTI issues, you are allowed to enter the office. So my question is like, how many LGBTI organizations did a physical space in them office for Romani LGBTI people, that there is the Romani LGBTI issue office, let's say, there is a Romani LGBTI person expert, and then the person is responsible to answer and support your question.
Thank you, Deja. Comment there?
Hello, my name is Dalibor and I'm coming from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina. I hope that I will make a break state with this question. I must say that Daphne inspired me because she's a journalist, and I will talk from my professional perspective because I'm a journalist too. According to all this discussion, I have a question for Deja. Maybe we forgot in all this discussion yesterday and today to mention one very important ally. I'm talking about media, of course, and about journalists. Did you think that, I don't know, articles about Roma, about LGBT or other vulnerable groups should write a professional journalist from mainstream media, or we need to make a media, Roma media, LGBT I plus media and etc. Because I'm talking like someone who had opportunity to write for Kosovo 2.0 because it's one of very rare media in region that you can find so many articles, so with different topics and very professional. But I'm talking that it's a very rare media, especially if we talk about public services, state services. I don't know. Okay, there is a professional journalist, but they need to, how to say, to feel, as you said. Someone need to sit on that chair and to write about Roma, about LGBT, about other groups. And what is your opinion? And not just your, actually, it's a question for all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, I will be very. Sorry.
Start with Deja, Romina, and Arbor if you want to add something.
I will be very brief. Yes, I think representation of Roma and LGBTI people are very crucial, and I have to divide the presentation and representation. So, I mean, okay, I believe that representation is always must be on the hand of Romani people. I mean, in this sense, I'm very straightforward, and this stance. I think it could be very powerful if a Romani journalist would write about Romani LGBT issues. Of course, I'm not telling that non-Romani people they cannot have article or they cannot interviewing Romani people, Romani LGBT people, but that is. In my case, that is not a representation, that is a presentation because of the different identities, but that is my struggle to divide these issues. Anyway, but I think it's very key to talk about this on respective and meaningful manner, and what I'm always considering, and always I'm giving some advice for my ex-students or whatever, that they are the lead, they must be the lead of the discussion, and they cannot go to the positions, or they cannot show the positions of the journalists that they are a savior of them. You know what I mean? They cannot be the white savior, because the voice and leading voice must be of the person who gives the interviews and the narratives. Because if you don't want our narratives, our voice, it's politicized, will be politicized. If you don't want, we are part of somehow in the history. And our voices, our narratives, it will be remain for the next generations. And that is a huge social responsibility. And that's why I'm not giving interviews anymore. And I said, like, some of journalists, they were calling me, and I said, like, what do you want? And they want, I want something of your life interviews. And I said, I'm not your subject. If you wanna have a gypsy hero, then maybe you can find other people, but you are knocking on the wrong door. And I said to them, if you wanna have a professional interview regarding my experiences, about my work experiences and about my research outcomes and so on, my criticism, then I'm more than welcome, but don't include me as a gypsy on your white savior article. And it's the same thing, and I'm sorry about my French. If somebody wanna write about Romani LGBTI issues and social challenges, the approach shouldn't be to write about gypsy faggots, sorry about my French. They should write about Romani LGBTI issues and challenges the status quo.
E kuptoj që është çështje shumë delikate.
I understand this is a delicate issue, being Roma, but also having a different sexual orientation to what society expects or prefers you to have, or what is traditional. It is additionally difficult because then you are discriminated in multiple ways. I do not agree to create exclusive things only within our community. So someone dealing with Roma to represent only issues dealing with Roma, if it's a good journalist who is from the Roma community, of course, they should pay particular attention how media reports are considered in order to put into the mainstream the main issues concerning the community, and that applies to the LGBTI. But if we as a society want to fight stereotypes, it is important to have a more wider inclusion with journalists that are not Roma, because this is how we improve on our values. Obviously, we need to be strengthened as a community to empower people that have gotten education or who have become a very good journalist. In Albania, we have dedicated a media that write about issues completely differently compared to white journalists. So they do objective reporting, but because they are part of that minority, sometimes you tell the story differently because you feel it. Obviously, a white journalist, they did not experience poverty or discrimination, so the way they write might be completely different. But obviously, there will be contradictions, but I don't think it helps us to see things only within our minority group. That Roma issues are only for Roma, and not to give access to other journalists who have a wider audience, because this way you can transmit information in a wider way, and you can raise awareness about your community more effectively. When we talk about journalists, we're talking about journalists who are professional. There are journalists that are not interested at all. They just want to write something which is eye-catching. They want to get more clicks or whatever. But a journalist which is part of a certain community and considers issues or challenges of that particular community, obviously they will portray the issue in a much better way because they will feel the issue themselves. But we should look at media which targets not only the community, but in particular the community which is part of society, which excludes the others or tries to prevent others to be part of society. So it's better to confront these people directly with the issues of our communities rather than avoiding them. So, in my opinion, we should.
Microphone, please.
Representation and reclaiming the narrative is actually very, very important discussion, and maybe civil rights defenders can put it as a complete separate discussion next year, and for that I would like to be a panelist, not moderator, because it's like really, really interesting also to me. But I'm afraid we are like now very late with time, and we need to wrap it up, but later during lunch and also coffees, I invite everybody to continue the discussion or debate, and continue our conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dejo, thank you, Romina, thank you, Albert, for all your insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now continue with our guest, Swedish ambassador, but just 2 minutes until we fix.
Should I take it?
Okay, thank you. So instead of long conclusions from my side, on behalf of Civil Rights Defenders, I would just like to thank you all for being here, finding time to come to this 8th Western Balkans Summer Summit. I assure you that our discussions will continue, especially on a number of themes that we touched, but especially the last theme on human rights of Roma, LGBTI, and the alliances with other movements. I will not take your time more, but I would like to call our last speaker to come and to provide us with, to address us with closing remarks. And just to add, like we started the summit when I said that the Swedish government here in Kosovo has been one of the key supporters of human rights in Kosovo, supporters of the promotion and protection of human rights, and specifically the rights of the Roma, Ashkali, and Egyptians here. Also, as I mentioned when we opened through SIDA funds, SIDA and Swedish government, it has been great support in establishing the Western Balkans Roma Summit. So through SIDA support, we've been able to do this for 8 consecutive years. And to add to that, the Swedish embassy here in Prishtina, the staff, the ambassadors, everybody was all providing full support, not only to civil rights defenders, of course, but to the participants of Roma Summit. Mr. Ambassador, if you can please come. Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for those kind words. It's a great honor to be here. I hope you have enjoyed the 2 days of discussions. I'm very proud that Sweden have been able to support the Roma Summit for 8 years, and that we both financially support you, and that we also are engaged on a personal level from the embassy staff. Let me offer you 5 reflections and 2 comments on what donors could do more. The first reflection is that we can use environmental change and its impact on minorities as an entry point for dialogue in order to find better solutions with the political level. I understand that has been discussed during these 2 days here. So to use environment and to open up a dialogue and use that as an entry point together with the government and other senior people. The second issue is legal matters. That is as important as well. I understand that you have discussed a number of cases from Albania and Turkey. It was Frank Trehati and Sergen Gül who brought this up, the cases, and we can learn many things from these cases. So legal matters are equally important on this. And then the third issue would be the importance of having correct data on how it impacts environmental injustice and on hate crime. And the fourth point will be that we need to use researchers from the Roma community to a much greater extent. The fifth point, and I'm sure you agree with me on this, is that we have to have a better integration of ethnic communities in the Western Balkans, in particular in Kosovo. There are very few representatives in the ministries. We had a meeting a month ago or so. It was hosted by the advisor to Prime Minister Kurti, Elizabeth Gowing, and she also made a point that how many embassies have representatives of the Roma community. So it's not just the government in Kosovo, it's also the embassy, and that includes the Swedish embassy in Kosovo as well, I'm afraid. Those were the 5 reflections that I wanted to quickly mention that the Swedish embassy has followed during these 2 days of your summit. At the end, we'll just to mention that what the donors can do, and the first thing is a very simple issue, of course, that is really to assess what we are doing among all the donors, and assess how we are supporting or how we are not supporting the Roma community. I think the meeting that Elizabeth Gowing here in Kosovo, the Prime Minister's office, had was a good start of that. That was for all the communities. But that could be a good start to do that assessment. And then also to have some sort of roadmap and a vision ahead to see what we can do. The second issue is simply to reiterate my fourth point. That is really to recognize the knowledge and expertise in the Roma community, and that the embassies need to work more closely with you all on this. I'd like to thank the civil rights defenders for organizing this Roma summit, and I hope this discussion will continue, not only next year for the summit, but also in other matters. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for the closing remarks. I'm always sentimental for those who come here every year, they know. I've always said when we finish Roma Summit. I hope to see you next year. We will continue the discussions, we will stay in touch. We will send also some of the recommendations which we derived from the discussions this year through email. And I would like to wish to all our friends and colleagues who traveled from different parts of the Western Balkans and Turkey and Europe safe travels, and see you soon. Thank you. Thank you.